He's really pumped for the weekend, isn't he? So am I. Fishing openers this weekend. That's not why I'm pumped, but I guess it could be. Our guest today is a psychologist. So we're kind of turning the tables here. Eric Lundin is with us. You're with the Rice County Social Services, right, Eric?
I am with Rice County Social Services and have been since 1989.
You're a psychologist.
I am a psychologist, yep. And my job at the county is to see folks in individual therapy, mostly folks who don't have insurance or high deductibles. So we kind of fill in the cracks for people who can't get access. And so...
Well, under Obamacare,
there were more
supposed to be covered, right?
Yeah, there's more people that are covered, and so but you'd be amazed how many people still don't have coverage
For mental health care.
Just for insurance in general. People don't sign up, and those sorts of things. So.
Well, they're paying a fine if they don't sign up now.
That's right. They pay that fine. So.
Which is probably cheaper than getting the insurance. That's what
Yes.
they're thinking.
Yep. And then there are other people who now are under Obamacare who have really high deductibles. Like I'm seeing a patient with a $12,000 deductible. So they're not going to find that money, and that's after they pay their premium. So
Right.
So
Well,
we have those issues too.
that deductible is high so that they can keep their premium affordable.
Right.
So it's kind of a catch-22.
It is a catch-22.
So hopefully they'll figure out the whole insurance thing.
Yep. Hopefully they will. I'm not certain they're going to figure it out.
I can tell by the look on your face that you don't necessarily agree that it's going to happen.
No, I'm not. I mean, they might have some other solution, but whether that'll be better or not, I don't know.
Yeah. But
So-
mental health, I mean, in all honesty, has not been looked upon as something that insurance should pay for until recent years, right?
Right. Well, Paul Wellstone,
Well, I
our own
remember
senator,
he
the
championed
Wellstone
that,
Act,
yes.
he championed that. And so things have been better, I think, over the last, say, 10 to 15 years. Before that, there was a lot of minimizing of, trying to limit the number of dollars that could be given to a person for their mental health.
Well, they blame people for having mental illness, it seems like. I mean, the stigma's put on, you know what I'm saying? That,
Yes. Like somehow it's all your fault. Right.
Whereas that's not the case.
No, often it's not. People learn skills that maybe aren't helpful to them. That's one of the things we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about habits of emotionally resilient people. How do people who, instead of talking about mental illness, we're going to talk about what creates mental health, good mental health. So I thought I'd turn the tables on that today.
Oh, okay.
Instead of talking about depression on a day like today,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about something good.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Because May is Mental Health Awareness Month.
Right, and that's why for like probably the last, 8 out of the last 14 years, you and I have been meeting and doing this talk every
And you
May.
still do it each year, so that tells me that you're kind of crazy.
Or there's just no one else that wants to do it.
No, I've always enjoyed it.
Right, and I've enjoyed doing this with you, and we appreciate you letting us have this time so that we can sort of bring awareness to a mental health issue.
I think it's terrific. Now you've done a walk or something to raise awareness.
Yes, there is a walk, and I'm forgetting the date of the walk.
Okay.
I think it's still upcoming. I think it might be next Wednesday. That might be next Wednesday, May 17th. And that'll start, I don't know any details on that this year, I'm sorry.
Okay, but that's to raise awareness for
mental health too, yep.
I think, well, we're going to touch on this in the next segment. For those of you who heard the show yesterday, we had a nice visit with the Chief Deputy of the Northfield Police Department, and he touched on this as being, because I asked him, I said, what's the number one challenge for your officers these days? He said most of the calls we go on involve people who have mental health issues. And the sad thing is, there are no resources to help these people. So we're going to talk with Eric about that when AM Minnesota
To
continues.
hit the field this spring. Whether it's in the shop or in the field, Harvey, Scott, and Seth are ready and able to get the job done. Backed up by some of the latest fabrication equipment, there are very few parts that can't be fabricated and installed on your equipment. Give a call to Metal Services at 507-503-2144 or stop in and see them. The repair shop is located.
Eric Lundin, a psychologist with Rice County Social Services, our guest this morning on AMS. Do you do any side practice?
No, I don't. I don't do that.
You've never had the desire to do any side practice?
It's a great question. No, I think I have my hands full.
Okay.
At the
There's
county.
a shortage, though, of psychiatrists, psychologists, is there not?
Yeah, most practitioners in the community, therapists and other clinical social workers, are pretty full up.
There's 12 here in Faribault. At least that's what, I looked it up.
Is there? Yeah.
12 listed.
That's about right. Yeah. And they all have waiting lists, I think.
And there are, roughly 25,000 people in Faribault. You include area lakes, it's probably closer to 28,000.
Right. So if you take, if at any one time, if 20% of the population needs a mental health provider, 20% of 28,000 is, what is that?
Yeah.
560?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
No, it's more than that. 2,800.
Oh, we're talking
5,600.
Yes,
It's 5,600.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of folks who probably could benefit from having a therapist. And we probably don't have enough.
That's almost 3 Kenyans.
Right.
That's a lot of people.
It is. It's a lot. Yeah.
Wow. When you put that in that perspective. Anyway, Eric, before we went to the market update, I told you about yesterday's show when I visited with Northfield's chief deputy and asked him what the top challenge is, and he said we're dealing with people on a lot of our calls, a majority of our calls, he said, that are suffering from mental health issues and we can't help them.
Yeah. People have stress in their lives and they don't cope with it very well. And then they get into a style of thinking, a style of behaving that might work in the short term, but over time, these kinds of skills don't translate into good mental health over a period of time. And then there's a tipping point at some point where now they're calling the police to figure out how to solve their problem, and they don't have the ability to do it. I mean, obviously, the policeman can sit there and support and give some advice, but, he doesn't have any long-term solutions.
No, but what he said that really kind of floored me was we have no resources to help these people.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I've been on transports to Fargo because there's no mental health beds in this area.
This is a huge problem. So we got several issues here. One, we don't have enough psychiatric beds in the state of Minnesota.
Right.
And two, then what happens is these folks go to the hospital because they're a danger to themselves or others, and then they sit in the emergency room sometimes for 2 or 3 days. It's not a very good process. Some of this, the history of this is in 1996. St. Peter closed down. We went from having 196 beds in our south central region here of Minnesota, Albert Lee, up to Mankato, down to Jamestown? I'm forgetting that name.
Janesville?
No, way down on the border. I'm forgetting the name of that town. But there's like 10 counties, and we had 196 beds dedicated to that. Well, we wanted to, rightfully so,
Spread
people
them out.
deserved a chance to be in the community
Right.
who had serious and persistent mental illness. So we did away with the beds, and we brought in more resources to the community. But what that also worked on, what those beds provided was acute care, folks who were in crisis, and that was replaced with like about 30 beds for the entire 10 county area.
Isn't that something?
So we solved one problem. People have more care in the community. People live in the community who have serious and persistent mental illness. But what we did away with was acute care. And so that's where there was a recent article by some folks that was in the Star Tribune that said there needs to be a concerted effort to build something, basically a brick and mortar situation to build a building for acute care. And we need to start reinvesting those dollars. But we saved millions and millions and millions of dollars by bringing folks into the community, giving them access to community care, which people deserve that. But it's left this other problem that's just gotten worse and worse.
Yeah. So we were going to talk about the habits of emotionally resilient people.
Yeah.
Turning this into a positive, right?
Yeah, we want to turn this into a positive today. And, there might be one or two things people out there in the community could pick up on today that maybe they could say, well, I want to do that. I'm going to do that and make myself feel a little better.
So let's hop to it. What do you
All
have?
right. The first one is that I believe is really good is developing your own set of core beliefs that you believe in. Really examining your values. And those that are more successful have a set of values that they live by.
Or try to, anyway.
They try to be. Whether it's, their decision is to be a good parent. There's all kinds of values out there, but they're defined and they live by those. A second one is this is a big one. Trying to find meaning in whatever stressful or traumatic things that has happened to you. So it might be, let's say you have an illness.
You can be in trouble there. Don't you think? Sometimes there's just no meaning.
There are tragedies. But
Yeah.
I'm talking, let's just take something like an illness. Let's say you start getting emphysema because you smoke.
Which I don't, but that's
No,
okay.
I know,
We'll
neither
pretend
do I. But let's just say that that's an example. That can become extremely stressful. But if you can find meaning in like saying, hey, if I keep this up, I'm going to be dead, versus trying to find a way to then say, this is my cue to do something different with my life. So basically, taking lemons and making lemonade. That's basically the thing. There's stressors. Let's say at work you're working a lot and now your life is out of balance and you're not going to your kid's softball game. Saying, whoa, wait a minute. Stopping that and then changing. Rather than just saying, oh, this is how it's going to be and I don't have any choice here. So it's finding those things that happen and finding ways to develop another way of behaving in relation to those stressful or traumatic things. So that's the second one. Third one, try to maintain a positive outlook. Now there are ways to do this. There are ways. Every day, when you get up in the morning, express some gratitude. When you meet people, you don't even have to say anything to them. Just exude some compassion toward another person. And you can do this without ever saying a word, just looking at them and greeting them. These are two really great ways to just be more positive, by showing gratitude for what you have and to others, showing gratitude for their part in your life, and then showing compassion to people. So that's another good one. I like that one.
Every day is a blessing.
Yes, every day is a blessing. You want me to keep going?
Sure.
Sometimes you might have a friend who's more resilient than you. I do this. I have a very good friend named Scott who I watch because he shows a lot of resilience. And he just has a way of doing that. I'm not going to go into the details of that. So I often will watch him and maybe even practice being a little bit like him. And this helps me then become a little bit more emotionally resilient.
That's the key here. We're talking about emotional resilience.
Emotional resilience. Dealing with stress in a more effective way. All of these are ways to deal with stress in a little bit more effective way.
Because you're talking about things that will add stress into your life.
Right, right. We're going to have stress.
And their stress is not all bad either.
Stress is not all bad. We touched on this a little bit last year.
Right. Yeah.
How people frame their stress, whether they sort of embrace it and say, I can be stronger because of the stress, as long as it's within some normal limits. People with some stress in their lives do a lot better than people with no stress in their lives. They're actually healthier. And then having a belief system that your stress, there is something good about about your stress.
I mean, I'm just thinking that this came right into the top of my bald head, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
Abe Lincoln. Now, here was a guy who is an emotionally resilient person. Think of the things Abe Lincoln went through.
Exactly.
Lost his son while he's in the White House.
Yeah.
His wife had some mental health issues. He had some mental health issues, right?
Exactly.
He was an emotionally, I would describe him, not knowing the guy, just from what I've read, that he is an emotionally resilient person.
Right. One of the things he did was he, I guess, told a lot of stories, funny stories, to his staff and those around him as a way to release stress. That's one story that I remember.
Humor's a fantastic stress reliever, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Having a little humor will go a long way.
Yeah, I would think so.
Humor is an important thing.
Is that on your list?
That's not on my list.
Well, doggone, Eric.
You know another thing that's not on my list that's really good? People talk about people who are lucky. Okay? Do you know that if you just talk to 3 new people a day? Now, this serves several different things, some of which are on my list and others. But talking to a lot of new people and asking questions of other people, you will be a more lucky person. Because they're going to have information about things that you might be interested in. And then you can use those. That's why when I go out on a trout stream, every fisherman I see, I ask, what are you using? Because these other trout fishermen, fly fishermen, are a wealth of information. I always greet them, I always talk to them. And then guess what? Maybe I'm a little bit more lucky fishing.
Not everybody wants to share that, though, Eric.
No, well, yes, there's probably some people that hold back, but there's no harm in asking.
No, absolutely not.
No, there's not. There's no harm in asking. So, the biggest one, here's what people do the most. People run away from things that they're afraid of.
Well, that's human nature, is it not?
Yes.
I mean, when you touch the stove, when you're however years old, you've learned not to touch the stove again.
Right. However, so that's a real danger. But people make up a ton of fears in their mind that aren't really true. They're not really real. This is the thing. That we just make up. We have what we call in our brain a negativity bias. Because before the stove, there was a tiger millions of years ago, and we knew to be hypervigilant around bushes because there might be a tiger there, and so that served us. Well, guess what? Our brain never got rid of the negativity bias, and so we have a tendency to move toward being negative, and our world we don't need to be wired for as much negativity anymore.
So if somebody has a fear of flying, I'm just using this as an example.
Yeah.
I love to fly.
Yeah.
But some people do have a fear of flying. They don't like to fly.
Right.
This is something that's concocted in their brain, or is it real?
Well, for the most part, yes. I mean, if you look at the number of people who travel every year by flight versus those who travel by car, there'll be 170 motor vehicle deaths this year alone in the state of Minnesota. So multiply that by 50, and you've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000 people dying in America on roads. I don't know what the real number is, but
Yeah.
it's got to be somewhere.
I know what
around
you're saying. More people die on roads than die in plane crashes.
That's right.
But the fear
So
of
in some ways,
flying-
that's a fabricated fear.
But the fear of flying isn't necessarily a fear of dying, is it?
Oh, I think it is.
You do?
Oh yeah, I think that's why. I mean, in my mind, they're going to their death.
Oh, okay.
And in some ways, when I sit down in the plane and I buckle in, I'm going, yeah, I'm flying in a tube in the air. Isn't this interesting?
I've thought about that too when I walk in. It's like, wow, this thing can actually fly.
Right. Now, there's some danger in doing that. And in many cases, there's probably some truth to a person's fear.
I could fall down the stairs. And
Exactly. So hold on tight to the railing, right? Watch your step. But that doesn't mean avoid going down the stairs.
Right.
You're going to miss out on a lot of life if you don't go down the stairs. Okay? So the point is you have to move toward those things that you're afraid of. Otherwise, what's the option? Drink, use drugs, avoid by not doing anything, or allow or buy into your beliefs and fears that much more, which then create even more anxiety for you. So you've got to find ways to move toward your fears. So that's a good one. I like that one.
When you're saying move toward your fears, you're talking about embracing them or not?
Embracing, yes, that's the word. That's a great word, Gordy.
Well, I don't know about great words, but it's a word.
No, it's a word, and it's a very good word. You want to embrace what you're afraid of.
Oh boy, that's not easy to do.
Right. No, it's not. It's not supposed to be easy.
I mean, I'm not afraid of the dark. I know people who are.
Right.
And they are really afraid of the dark.
Right.
Have to have a night light on, you know, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
that's okay. What the heck? You know?
But you're saying embrace that fear. So
As much
don't
as
have
possible,
a night
right.
light
But
on.
there's some minor coping mechanisms like having a nightlight are fine.
Okay.
You can keep from stubbing your toe.
So
too.
don't completely avoid, well, John Madden didn't like to fly. Remember that?
Right. So he found a way around that. And he was rich enough and famous enough he could do that.
Most of us aren't.
Right.
You have anything else on your list?
Oh God. You're going to have pain in your life. No one's going to avoid pain. So when you do have pain, you find the people in your life to go and visit with. I talked to a patient yesterday, and she was avoiding talking to this neighbor of hers who does, I'm not going to share too much, but
sure.
She, I said, you need to go over and have a beer with that guy. It's time to do that. I encouraged her to reach out because she's just in this shell. And I said, you need to reach out. So reaching out to the people that can support you is a really critical skill for people who are emotionally resilient.
Now, if you reach out and the person does not accept that reaching, you have to be resilient enough, you know what I'm saying?
Well,
to not take that personally.
Right. Or find someone who can. And that's a trick in our lives too. Not everybody can give you what you need.
That's right.
So it's figuring out who can give you what you need. I talk to patients about that all the time. Just say, that's like going to a gas station to find a couch. You're just not going to find anybody,
right.
And so you've got to find the people who can support you. That's a very good point.
Okay. Wow. I'm learning something here.
Yeah. Another one, learn new things.
Expand your horizons.
Expand your horizons. This is
that.
really good for your brain and for yourself. One, it gets you out of your comfort zone. Two, you don't have to be good at it. You don't have any expectation, or you shouldn't have an expectation.
That's why when I go up to Pleasant Manor to visit, if I visit some people,
yes,
I always get a kick out of they have this craft class, and so many of the residents there go to this craft class, and it's fun to watch them because they're really into this.
Right.
They're passionate about what they're doing, and that's got to be a stress reliever too.
Right.
Not?
So when you go up and visit, I'd encourage you to do the craft class.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that would be like doing something new, So, like for me, the new thing I'm doing is I'm swimming more. Now, I was always a good swimmer, but this year I've made it a goal. I'm going to swim an open swim on a lake, 2.25 mile swim. So that's kind of like not a completely new thing, but I've never done a 2 1/4 mile swim in a lake. So that's kind of me doing a new thing.
Okay.
You know? So, we still got time or you got to go to commercial?
No, I've got some. We got no commercials.
No commercials. Wow, this is fantastic.
This is just straight Eric Lundin giving us the
Okay.
habits of emotionally resilient people who are highly effective too.
Now, here's another one. Structure in your life. Have a regimen for your life. Get up at the same time. Go to bed at the same night. Have a schedule. People with schedules do much better than people without schedules. One of the things that we do with patients in our practice or in our Rice County Drug Court that I'm also a part of, the first thing we're doing is we're giving them structure. We're giving them a calendar. We want them filling it out with everything they have to do. Pleasurable things, treatment things, you know, if you're gonna, when you're gonna eat, as much as you can do that. There's studies that show that folks who have bipolar illness, which is manic depressive illness in the old days, that's what it was called, that just giving them structure where they plug in every activity, whether it's watching TV, eating lunch, talking to a friend, working, going to a meeting, whatever's in their lives, writing it all down and doing it at a certain time reduces their recidivism because they've got the structure in their lives. So you've got to have enough things to do, and you have to follow the schedule. So that's people who are emotionally resilient have schedules. Gordy, I'm sure you got a big time schedule.
Well, that's my problem in life.
It's not though. It's probably the thing that keeps you as healthy as you are. You know. So.
I've got less than a minute. So.
All right. Good. That went fast. The last two. Don't beat yourself up or dwell on the past. This is the thing I want to tell you. Your past does not determine your future. And lastly, I got one more thing, huh?
It doesn't have to determine the future, but it often does.
Right. Supply our children. We're doing our talk on, we're doing our thing on May 19th from 4 to 7 upstairs at the Bacharach building, upstairs at the Cheese Cave in the loft.
Okay.
4 to 7, $15 tickets for 3 glasses of wine and a silent auction with Mark Hedenstrom at the guitar.
Oh, cool. Hey, thanks, Eric.
Yeah, thank you.
That concludes today's edition of AM Minnesota. John Fossum, County Attorney tomorrow.